Hi, I'm Jock.
Hey, I'm Ray.
This week, Ray tells Jock why he's carried a copy of Never Wrestle a Pig in his bag for nearly 20 years, and why Bitcoin believers need more empathy.
Hi, I'm Ray. I am the founder of free.co.uk and a number of fintechs before that. But really, I'm a student of business. And so, whenever I watch things like Formula One, it's not really people going around in a circle that I'm interested in. It's all the politics of how people behave and how they engineer an advantage over the other teams and the movements of people and money that really interests me. Because it's crazy to think it's, this massive sport, yet you know who's going to win at the beginning of the season.
So we're going to be doing another podcast on Formula One then, yeah?
Probably not. That's not but what we will do is we'll look at books like this.
Yes.
And the reason why this book particularly is so interesting is the guy who wrote it, Mark McCormack, invented a whole industry. Right? He created the industry of sports marketing. He invented the sports rankings. He's the one who put Wimbledon on TV, which is why you have tennis players and golf players paid so much money. And this particular book is one of his less famous ones. So his most famous one is What They Don't Teach You in Harvard Business School. But this one, its original title was Street Smarts in an Internet Age. And one of the chapters in there was Never Wrestle With a Pig. And so when they republished it, they titled it Never Wrestle With a Pig because it's obviously much more catchy. But yeah, we'll go through this book in I think the requisite detail, because I think the 90 lessons from his world of sales in there, while bite-sized to read, really merit going through and understanding with a deep realization.
How did you come across the book in the first place?
I as a kid, I wanted to be a sports agent.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that.
So when my grandma told me no son of mine is going to go into space, I needed to find something else. I love sports to the level where I won't support any team, but I'll watch and play everything. So this last year has been really painful in that I can't play any sports, and I hate solo exercise. But sports is something I'm massively interested in. I wouldn't say passionate because it's really a deep interest. And Mark McCormack is the CEO of IMG, right? And IMG had this headquarters on Chiswick Roundabout, and being from an Asian family, there's tons of trips to Heathrow Airport to pick up family, and this thing just dominates this roundabout. Well, it used to. And so I always wanted to be a sports agent, and then you watch Jerry Maguire, and the rest is like that didn't quite happen. But this book, not this one I'm holding in my hand, but this book has basically been in my bag since about 2001.
Right.
And it's embarrassing to say I haven't finished it yet. Because it's just sitting there, right? And so there's lots of other distractions and interests. And the great thing about this book is you can flip to any bit, anywhere, read for 3-4 minutes, and there's one self-contained learning from it. But before we go in, there's a reason I'm doing this with you. Just tell everybody a bit about you.
So my name's Jock Busuttil. I am a freelancer, so I freelance in product management. So that typically means going into companies and basically helping them to make things that people need, which sounds simple, but it's surprisingly difficult to do. For a job such as product management, which is typically associated with technology, actually about 80-90% of it is all about people skills, not about technology. But it's going to be really interesting for me to explore this book and see how it relates, because it's quite an old book. I think it was published originally, 2000-ish, and then was republished, as you say, under the new name a few years later. And the introduction is kind of interesting because it's basically saying, this is right at the beginning of the, in effect, the internet age for businesses. And I just quite like Mark's refreshing take on, or refreshing honesty, because he says, I don't know how the internet is going to change my business. I just know it's going to be there like telephones are there.
His key point is technology shouldn't replace our skills with people.
Well, exactly. I think this is the thing that comes out loud and clear. But yeah, so tell me. So in terms of you talked about kind of why this book has been important to you, and how it's been sat in your bag for so very long. What do you think are the reasons why you keep coming back? Why is this the first book that you've decided to kind of review, other than the fact you haven't finished it yet?
So I believe that learning has a half-life. This is why, to perform, you need to train. You can be the most gifted sports person, footballer, whatever, but without the training, you're never going to consistently compete. And you can speak to a customer right now, and your empathy with what they're going through is going to be incredibly strong. In a week's time, it's going to be half as strong. In 2 weeks after that, you're not even going to remember. And it's incredibly relevant for what I do day to day, because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm relating with people, whether they're staff, colleagues, customers, investors, the general public via the press, or direct to video. And it's so easy to forget when you're building product that it's about people, or when you're selling a mortgage, it's about a person and their home. To break it down from the product bit even more is, and this is one of the first things that I loved when we first interacted, 7-8 years ago, is my job as a product manager is to sync up the mental images between everybody on the team.
Interesting.
And those mental images are always trying to get out of sync, because people have questions and assumptions, and there's never enough data or evidence or research that we can point to. So we're always battling this pendulum swinging between one extreme and another extreme, or one person's point of view and another person's point of view, and the equilibrium in the middle is constantly being missed. And that's not about really tools and processes as much as it is about a fundamental understanding about how people behave and how they want to be treated and spoken to and interacted with. And so, you highlighted this book was written at the point when the internet was becoming a thing on ordinary people's desks, and it was obvious it was going to change the world. No one really knew how much it was going to change the world, but it was clear that there were behaviors being formed, like people firing across an email instead of getting up and speaking to someone, because we know the fidelity of an email is abrupt and there's not enough context and empathy in that written form sent instantly without being able to take the time to pause and think or assess the other person. But we do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? It's so easy to just quickly whiz together an answer and click send.
And then we're missing out on the 600 odd body language cues that that inevitably come.
Just being able to just feel that I'm having a conversation rather than sending it into the ether.
Yes, it is ironic that we're doing this on a video call, as opposed to sat across the room from each other with a camera on us. But that's kind of the nature of things. So if you were to kind of summarize the book, so if you're going to sort of explain what the book was about to someone who'd never heard of it, and what would you describe? How do you summarize the book to someone?
It's really simple. It's 90 lessons from Mark McCormack's World of Sales, and they're all about people and how you interact with people, and therefore how you sell. And he's made those mistakes, so you don't have to.
Do you think it applies just as much if you're not in a salesy kind of role?
I think there's a misconception in life that you're not in a sales role. Like, you're always in a sales role. Like, when I'm asking my wife whether we want to go on holiday, I'm selling to her.
And are you successful?
Yeah, well, holiday. When I want my kids to play outside instead of inside, I'm having to sell. If I do not understand how they, as people, are motivated and influenced and interested, then I am going to fail in a role as a parent or a husband or a friend or a son.
So this is, I think, one of the interesting things. So selling, as most of us tend to think of it, it always feels very one-sided. Almost you're being broadcast at. You're getting shouted at by adverts, or you're being, when we were still allowed to go into shops, potentially being, grabbed by a salesperson and, them pushing whatever or promoting whatever product they're on commission for that day. Well, exactly, because I think the point is that, and this is one of the things that struck me very early on about the book, is that this is hearkening back to a time, or maybe this is the way it should be now, but it just isn't done very often, when selling is actually about empathy. Selling is about understanding the needs of the person that you're selling something to. And so really what, rather than this kind of negative sense that we tend to get from selling, the hard sell, or that kind of thing, or aggressive selling techniques. What we're really thinking about here is the method of selling where there is genuinely something that will enrich your life and will solve a number of problems for you. You might not be aware of it. And it's my job to not only make you aware of it, but also to demonstrate to you why it's going to be of benefit to you. And then encourage you to improve your situation by taking advantage of that particular product or service.
And, how much money and time is spent on customer research? Because it's so fundamentally important. If you do not understand the person you're talking to, communicating with, then, you're relying on luck to be able to land a message that is something they're thinking of. There's a direct parallel in my world where mortgages. Mortgages are something that people don't understand, and it's just a thing you do to get a home.
Yes. And
the important thing is, it's a thing you do to get a home. You don't really care about the mortgage.
It's a means to an end.
Right. But the mortgage industry is very insular, and so thinks very highly of the mortgage. And the mortgage is the most phenomenal product of all time, right? It's the single greatest reason for rising wealth in the middle class. But people don't care about it. And so when you see, very well-funded companies like Habito and Trussell advertising on TV, come to us for a mortgage, it's not what people are thinking. And if you're trying to land a message, obviously, like Coca-Cola and McDonald's do this incredibly well, which is why they're so phenomenally dominant in their fields. But they are landing messages that you are wanting to feel or thinking about, like holidays are coming. It's an incredible feat of understanding human behavior that they own Christmas.
So I think it's that it's a common problem. So in product management, one of the biggest mistakes I see people making over and over again is them thinking that their product or their service is the be-all and end-all. As you say, people don't get a mortgage because they specifically want a mortgage. They're trying to get a house, a place to live, somewhere that will support their chosen lifestyle, the place they want to work, the size of house they want to have kids in, or whatever else. Yeah, and
so factors before it comes to a mortgage.
Exactly, and the mortgage is literally just this arbitrary almost step along the process towards that goal of getting a house. And whether it's so the mortgage product, understanding your position in things and not realizing that your product isn't the bit that people are interested in. It's the thing that your product enables them to do. That's the interesting thing. Is one of the biggest mistakes that people in business, I think, seem to make.
Well, there's a really prominent example right now, Bitcoin.
Oh yeah.
If you're a Bitcoin believer, you can't understand why everybody else isn't on the Bitcoin bandwagon with you. All the things they list, right? It's trustworthy because you can audit it on the blockchain, and it's transferable. And yes, technically those things are true, but from a human perspective, actually, how do I audit the blockchain? Can I audit it myself, or do I need some skills to do it? I have no idea. How do I, interact with it? Is it in my bank account? Can I put it in my bank account? Can I buy stuff with it? And it's still the case that the thing you buy with Bitcoin is drugs, right? So if that's the world you grew up in, you might be fortunate enough to have this thing that's gone from like cents to $30,000, $40,000 per Bitcoin. But the rest of us don't understand the arguments being made because they don't relate to us. We are in a context that it's not clear that Bitcoin is this panacea of transparency that it's made out to be by its believers. And for them, it's true, right? For them, for their context, it is absolutely true. But this is the thing about sales. You need to understand the audience deeply enough to be able to find the thing that they care about that makes what you're saying important. And often, that's a process that people never get to the end of, right? Finding out what it is that someone wants, whether it's your go-to-market strategy or the feature of your product that people fall over and fall in love with. We recently signed up to Intercom.
Okay.
They are amazing. So there's this one feature on Intercom that I use on other people's platforms like Seed Legals, where it tells you what their response time is. So Seed Legals typically respond in 2 minutes or whatever. So we've got a startup plan for Intercom, and it's $50 a month. I can't get that one feature, which is a small feature, right? But I feel really good about it. I want it. $9.99 a month to get that feature. Other features. But they get it. They understand. They've hooked me on the crack. They know that I get a dopamine hit from seeing that my team is responding in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, rather than 2 days or whatever. And that's going to matter to a consumer who's going to be engaging with us on the website. And that's out of my reach unless I pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
Very, very clever.
You're listening to the Pig Wrestlers podcast. We're meant to be reviewing the book Never Wrestle With A Pig by Mark McCormack, but we don't always get around to it.